We all experience challenging and difficult situations in life. In the face of these complexities, it is not always clear how to respond, what to do, or what to avoid. It's easy to get stuck in these moments and stop moving forward in life. Wholeness with Naomi is a program that explores our experiences with such encounters and provides tools and strategies that can enable anyone facing these hardships to continue walking their path in life. We can't wait to meet you on this journey. Tune in, your life is about to change for the better.
Welcome to our program, Wholeness with Naomi, where we talk about different and sometimes difficult situations that we find ourselves in. More importantly, we talk about the tools that you can use to navigate in these different and difficult paths. Somo yedu inoti, chirere chigokurirawo. This is something that is coming from our cultural background. Today on the show, I want to talk about the subject of black tax. Joining us today with Ms. Shalom Goviro. Welcome to the show, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Naomi. It's a pleasure to contribute to this conversation.
Yes, thank you. And today we're talking about black tax. What is black tax?
A very good question to start with. I think initially it was popularized in South Africa, where there's a whole background of apartheid, and now there was a rising black, middle class. People were doing very well, better than, their parents. And there was just an expectation that, hey, when you make it out of the ghetto, can you remember us?
Okay.
And they started to say, it feels like black tax because you've got to pay it. It's your pittance, so to speak, to your relatives. Now, in Zimbabwe, like you rightfully said, there's that cultural connotation or proverb that we say, "Chirere chigogurerao." So traditionally, we've always known that if the elder brother or the elder sibling makes it out, then they have to help everybody else in the family to also make it out, because primarily our parents would make sure that the firstborn, they can at least go to university, have a good job, start working, and then they take care of the rest of the siblings. Now, postmodernism is coming. There's globalization. People are now learning that, there are terms like black tax. There's this whole idea of, I also want to take care of myself. I also have my own goals. I also have my own things that I want to do and my desires. So how do I sort of marry the two? Because there's an expectation from the cultural perspective of, I need to take care of those who are behind me. So that's why we now have this terminology, black tax, that's coming in.
Okay. I like how you're putting it across, especially on the cultural context, where you're saying that the elderly child is expected to take care of the other siblings. So we may not sometimes necessarily put the word black tax, in some communities it's a word that may not be known, but that aspect, everyone is familiar with it because culturally within our country, that is something that is done in most families.
Yes. So it's not necessarily something we had language to until black tax as a statement came. People have left to go for, greener pastures to other countries. So those guys that have gone for greener pastures are supposedly earning way more than we are, right? So there's an expectation that because you've got to give something. And really, whenever someone is climbing up the social ladder, there are people that help you to do that.
That's
because culturally, again, there's an expectation uchabatsirwa na sekuru or uchabatsirwa na someone else who probably knows the system better than you or who started working earlier than you. So as a result, that then means when you are now successful, you need to make sure
that you also take care of
everyone else. And a lot of the times, we have these issues arise when there's a crisis in the family. So when someone dies, or maybe there's a wedding coming up, that's when these issues start to become, they kind of get to boiling point where there are these expectations that are levied on those who have made it, on those who are successful. In fact, there are certain statements that are said, even in our families, to say, you know what, maybe God has blessed you so that you bless the rest of us.
Yes, I've heard that statement as well. Yes.
Exactly. Kuti pamwe vautori bridge, rekuti vamwe vaite sei vayambuke, right? So those kind of statements perpetuate this expectation, and it gets complicated, like I said, because in our cultural context we don't have the language for it. So these guys that have made it now come back and say, but he knows the black tax guy, which becomes most of like a postmodernism philosophy that's coming in to our into our cultural context. And you hear, I mean, there's a Facebook group that I once joined, Yemazimai, and this issue is pervasive. It's causing a lot of debate. It splits, it splits opinions across, in churches, in just social groups. It splits opinions because we don't know how to handle it. Yeah.
I actually wanted us to actually go there because when we are looking at it from how it was set in the back then, as we are saying, there was an aspect of responsibility that was being put within individuals that when you are up there, when you've made it out of the system, can you also take care of the others such that, you're helping each other along the way. You're looking at your brothers, at your sisters, at your siblings, and you're working with them in that journey of success. Now with everything that has happened and also the expectations that people end up having, is it a good thing?
I can't say it's a good thing or a bad thing because back then, the economic dynamics that our parents were dealing with are very different from now, right? So my parents took care of their parents because vaigara kumusha. So the economic, the financial responsibility that they had of their parents was very minimal. I mean, if when you look at the amount of money they used to earn. But for me, what I'm earning and the expectation that I have to take care of a whole, family dynamic of saying maybe these people are actually living in the city. They are probably not living in Kumusha. So their costs are probably higher than what they would be Kumusha. So that then brings so much complexity, especially on someone else's budget and all these things, which makes this conversation very difficult to have.
Okay. So as we are talking about the family aspect, is there a way that one is able to differentiate to say, parents, those ones I should take care of, siblings, I should handle it like this? Is there maybe a framework that maybe can be used to guide on how one can use the black text in courts?
I like that. So for me, I just deflect a lot of things from, or maybe I look at things from a biblical perspective, okay, because I'm a believer. And I think the Bible really helps us to frame these stories or these issues in a good way. The first thing that it talks about is you should take care of your household first. It's a biblical principle to take care of your household first. So when I'm looking at the order of priorities, is I want to make sure that my children and my own immediate family is cared for. Then the next tier is making sure that my parents are taken care of, right? So we also need to make sure that our parents are taken care of, particularly with more emphasis on widowed parents, right? So if there is a widow in my mom or my mother-in-law is a widow, I take care of her first, and then after that I can then say, okay, who else can I help? And the framework is also orphans need to be of priority. Right. Okay. So we have in our family dynamics or in our communities, we have orphaned children, right? We need to be having a plan that includes them, right? So if I have taken care of my parents, I've taken care of my own household, the next tier is orphans, because God has his heart on orphaned children and the fatherless. That's a biblical principle. So I'm no longer talking about just black text. I'm now looking at it as giving. So if I look at it as giving, my giving is then structured from a biblical perspective. And then second thing is also looking at how we can give to empower. So we're not just giving because we want to help in the sense of just covering a gap that's there, but we're also giving to empower. So I like,
what does empowering look like?
Yeah, I want to give you two examples. One is from my mother's life. So she was widowed for 18 years. One of the things that she taught me was, as during her widowhood, she started a widows ministry, and she was very passionate about making sure that widows had skills that would be able to help them monetize whatever they have in their home. You look at the example of 2 Kings 4. This widow says to the prophet, my husband died and left me in debt. What am I supposed to do? And the prophet says, go and borrow jars and pour out the oil that's left in your home. That's where the miracle was, right? And then sell it. So we need to give to empower, to make sure that people actually have the means to get out of their financial pickles that they're in.
Okay.
Not just giving them so that, vanoriga kundinetsa, vanongoda mari yeschool fees rega inengovapa. No, but we need to go a step further and say, hey, what's the issue? What's making you not have school fees?
Thank you so much, Shalom, for your sharing. Viewers, let's take a short break. Join me in the next segment. Welcome back, viewers, to our program, Wholeness with Naomi. Before I went on a short break, Ms. Shalom Govero was just sharing with us on the aspect of black tax. Yes, I also have a question, on that same subject where we're talking about the effect on families and on individuals. I want us to just look at the relational impact and also even the emotional impact that black tax has upon families and individuals.
Yeah, so, I have personal stories, but I'm not going to go into those. I think overall, when you are successful in making it in life, there is that invisible burden, right, that is on your shoulders, where you feel indebted to say, I think I need to help other people because they're seeing me doing so well. So I think earlier on we were talking about how on WhatsApp statuses, people end up blocking certain people from viewing their status because they worry that if they see me eating ice cream, then they ask me for money and I say I don't have. Then
and this money could be for school fees.
And then they'll say, anototi nyima mari, but arikudya ice cream. Kana anototi nyima mari, asaenda kuworiti. Anditi. So that invisible burden creates an emotional distance.
Okay.
So people start to say, there are things that I do not share with my family members because it will cause, an expectation that I cannot fulfill, right? And I also want to live my life. So I don't want to live my life with this sort of feeling, pane munhu ari kundimaka, kuti you've done this, so why can't you do this for us, right? So that invisible burden is the first one, and it causes an emotional rift. It causes emotional distance. So there are people that end up not relating well
within that family setup.
Because ndiri kutya, and then there's also the aspect of ndinotya kuroiwa. Because I'm doing so well, I may end up being bewitched by my family members. In 2023, I traveled to the US for Mandela Washington Fellowship. Interestingly enough, the embassy asked us, should we post your pictures before you go, right? To say we've done orientation with these students that are now going to the US, or we post them when you've landed. And the whole room unanimously said, you post when we've landed.
Okay.
Everybody said,
this is
the
something
village
which is
people.
so real.
Yeah, everyone said the village people. If I post that I will be going to the US, I may start getting lists of things that they want from the US. That's number one. Number two, there'll be an expectation. So, Munemari, you are going to America. But
this is a funded program.
Is funded. No one understands those dynamics. So there was just a huge, it just made me laugh. I stopped and I said, wow, this is interesting. I thought all of us here, we are
Christians,
exposed.
Yes.
Yeah, also we are exposed, we don't think about those things, we've gone past kuroiwa. No, people actually still believe that. So there is that also aspect of saying relationally, there are things I don't share with my family members because I worry that if they know that I'm making it in life, they will bewitch me, right? So again, if you're a believer, how are you supposed to, behave in that? Because if you're a believer, then, you should not be worried about curses, right? You shouldn't be worried about how people look at you in terms of that, but sometimes people would do that because they know that there's going to be...
They have seen other people going through exactly the same.
Exactly. So as a result, we now have families where vanhu vanofungirana, and vanofungirana zvakaipa. And that causes, again, another emotional distance. So you have in families where people actually say, ndine hama dzangu dzandozoti vakandifonera vari kutsvaga mari. There is no other communication that
it's a
happens.
greeting. We need money for this, that's
Exactly. Exactly. So it's breaking apart families that are already fragmented, by the way. So this is deepening that fragmentation, where in the end, Teteweku UK, we only talk to her when we are really desperate and we need something. Yeah. So those are some of the effects, I think, in a nutshell. I have a friend of mine who's doing a lot of mental health counseling, and she keeps saying the amount of issues that are coming out of issues of, debt, or, I borrowed so that I can, pay off my brother's school fees. Now I'm struggling to pay it back. So there's a black tax component, but now it's compounded that there's a debt component as well. Yeah. So those issues can be so pervasive, and they're pervasive to the point where it's at every level. It's not just your middle income earner. It can even be the high income earners, where they are struggling with the emotional toll that expectations have on them.
Thank you so much, Ms. Shalom. This is really quite profound. Viewers, when we come back, let's now start talking about the tools that you can use for black tax. Let's take a short break. Do join me in the next segment. Thank you. Welcome back, viewers, to our program, Wholeness with Naomi. Before I went on a short break, Ms. Govero, you wanted to talk about tools that one can use for black tax.
Yes. So I think the first thing is to say budget to give. Okay.
What does that look like?
So practically that means when I'm working on my budget, I need to actually have a section that says family giving. Right? One of the budget templates that I give in my sessions, like when I'm doing financial wellness training, is I actually give you a template that has got a giving section. That giving section says giving to the church, giving to family, giving to other. So what I'm saying there is you think through it and you put it in your budget. I take this from a principle that's also biblical. In 2 Corinthians 9, Paul actually talks about this, to say each person should decide in their heart what they want to give. So that giving is not out of compulsion. You're giving with your whole heart because you've actually set it aside. So there's a specific amount you can put, and you can actually say there's a ceiling to this amount. So if someone calls me and says I need a 20,
it's an emergency.
Yes, and I put it, as $100 ceiling, right? So if someone says I want a 20, I give them. They want a 30, I give them. But if that budget allocation is exhausted, it's exhausted, and I can actually say andina mari. Why? Because andina yandaka plana kupa that month yapera. So I'm now waiting for next month to be able to do that. I'm not going to take money from Chikafu Chemumba to be able to give someone else unless it's death in the family or it's an emergency. Once again, you budget for emergencies. So that's the second aspect. You budget for emergencies. So the emergencies of Sawira Shaika, or there's been, a health emergency, your relative is really sick and they need money to buy medication. Put that in your emergency budget, right? So budget for emergencies. Then I think we spoke about this giving to empower. I think I've already spoken about that. But the fourth thing I wanted to also mention.
But sorry, before you go on the fourth thing, I just want us to just sit a little bit on that one, giving to empower. How do you empower people who may be operating at a victim level, where they see themselves as victims? Even whatever you give them, they are not in an empowered position to be able to carry on any business or any endeavor. They just want to receive. Is there a way that you can handle that?
Very good way to bring it up, actually, because it's something that I was thinking about, to say we've got people who have a victim mentality, who have an entitled perspective, right? So I think it connects with the fourth point that I wanted to mention, to say let's have conversations within families, not during crisis. A lot of the times we talk about money during crisis.
That's true.
Patofiwa, parwariwa, mwana numburiswa. What do we do? Saka, we are having a family conversation because there is a crisis in the family. But let's have family finance conversations during happy times. We're preparing for Christmas now, so there are our relatives coming from outside.
Everyone knows.
You know, everybody
Christmas
is
is coming.
home. Yeah, everybody is home. Let's start the conversations. Let's start them when, you know, we are all happy. You know, everybody, we are eating meat, it's braai time and whatever. Then we say, hey guys, let's have a conversation. We have a situation with the Amainingi, you know, who is struggling to make sure that school fees is paid for. How can we come alongside and help her? Okay, Mainingi vachivatori panapa. How do you think we can help you and partner with you? Because we are also struggling to be able to keep up with the bills that you have. Guys, it's not easy to take care of a whole household whilst you have your own household to take care of, right? So we need to make sure that we have as many people earning within households. That's how we should be thinking about these things. We should never, and this is also going back to the people who give. You should never feel very important because you give a lot.
Okay.
Or because you are the one who people call when there's an issue. I actually hate that, to be honest. I don't like that. I don't want to be the one that everybody says, Kana ningasipo, nothing can happen. I feel like that's not healthy, right? If we build these savior monuments in our families, it actually is more destructive than helpful.
Please share some more on that.
Yeah, so I think we need to really have a conversation on that, because there are people who actually enjoy that. They enjoy being seguru anomirirwa kuti zvinhu zvese zviendeke. But you are actually now causing a dependency syndrome within your family, right? And it's unhealthy, because at the end of the day, if you are no longer there, what's going to happen to these people? You are not the savior of the world. My husband always says that, I'm not the savior. You know, I'm not the general manager of the world, right? So there are certain things I don't have answers to. There are certain situations I cannot help you with. You may have to come with a plan, and then I help you with the plan that you already have.
Execute that plan. And it comes back to even what you were sharing, where you said, ask that person that is maybe requiring assistance, how do you see yourself coming out of this? And by that, you're putting the responsibility back to the person to actually start thinking about their own lives. How am I going to come out of this? And I think that's really quite key.
It's very important, so that at the end of the day, we realize that working and generosity go hand in hand. You know, it's scriptural. You know, they actually say that he who does not work, you know, 2 Thessalonians, he who does not work should not eat. It's a scriptural principle. So if we sort of babysit people and say, no, it's okay, we'll help you with everything, I think we are also actually fueling that poverty mentality, right? So those are hard conversations, by the way. They're not easy conversations to have, because sometimes you are actually talking to somebody who's very happy, sitting and just raising the phone and saying, can you send money for this? But we need to have these conversations. And we also need to be having conversations helping these younger people who are now working, you know, to take care of their parents, right?
How do you start that conversation?
It's scriptural again. For me, I come back to saying, hey, let's have a conversation to say, do you realize that you actually have a biblical mandate and responsibility to take care of your parents? And actually, scripture also talks about a blessing will come upon you when you honor your parents.
That's true.
So I am cheating you out of the blessing. If, let's say, I'm helping your parents and you are there,
and you are not,
and you are a child of this parent, and these situations are everywhere, like I said. So you will have someone saying, "Ndukuchengeta sekuru wangu, havana vana vawiri, havana vavaripo, but havana chavanoita," right? It means isusu vacho vari kubatsira, we're actually fueling what's happening here, and we're cheating this person out of the blessing that is rightfully theirs, right? It's a bigger issue, you see now. And I think for me, this is where my purpose lies. I want to help people to have the right theology about money, because when we have the right theology about money and giving, it will solve a lot of problems that we are seeing in our community and in our society.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us on the program. Viewers, I have been enlightened. I have learned so much through the teachings that came from Ms. Govero. The black text that we're talking about, look at it as giving. You'd find yourself, you'd have taken back the power, and it puts you in a place where you're able to give as you're able to. Viewers, do join us on the next episode. But in the meantime, do stay in wholeness. Thank you.